Hi everyone, Jim here. Welcome to my channel. Well, it is the second week of Homes is Where the Heart Is, and what I'm going to do today, I'm going to do a Sherlock Holmes bookshelf tour for you today. Now behind me, this complete shelf is Sherlock Holmes stuff except for the very bottom row. And I think last year, I did these paperbacks, so I'll probably avoid them this time around. I will start with the shelf below that, and I highly doubt that I'll get to the rest of them today, so maybe I'll do a part 2 bookshelf tour, and we'll see the rest of what I have on my shelf here. But week 2 for Homes is Where the Heart is to read the short stories of Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes short stories, whichever you choose, however many you choose to do. I've been just reading at random from these 2 books. This is A Treasury of Sherlock Holmes, and this was selected by his son Adrian Conan Doyle, the stories in this one. And I also picked this up at the Indigo bookstore, brand new, this last weekend. This is the casebook of Sherlock Holmes. So I've just been kind of flipping through both of them and just picking stories at random, not in any particular order, but I've really been enjoying them. And it's been a chance to kind of maybe reread ones that I haven't reread for a long time. I've also been watching some Sherlock Holmes movies. I think all in all I've watched 4 of them since February started. I watched The Woman in Green, a Basil Rathbone movie, Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. I watched A Study in Terror, which is where Sherlock Holmes is going up against Jack the Ripper, and that's based on an Ellery Queen book. And then a couple of spoof ones, Without a Clue, with Michael Caine and Ben Kingsley. And that was actually a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. And last night we watched They Might Be Giants, with George C. Scott as somebody who believes that he's Sherlock Holmes. And both of them were actually really good movies. And, if you want to watch a good movie, maybe they're worth checking out. But let's get to the bookshelf tour. I think I'm gonna see if I can get to 2 shelves. Maybe I'll just get to the 1 shelf. I don't know, depending on how quickly I go here. But I've got a few items, a few knickknacks on the shelf. I've got this little Sherlock Holmes bear, and he's got his little deer stalker and pipe, and he's reading a Sherlock Holmes mystery, it says on the book that he's reading. So that's what's on my bookshelf. I have years ago there used to be I don't think it's there anymore. There used to be a bookstore in Toronto called the Sleuth of Baker Street, and I'd been there once or twice. I didn't live in Toronto, so it was tough for me to actually go there, but it was a really, really nice store. I don't think it's around anymore, unfortunately, but that's the card from it. And they've got the Sherlock Holmes silhouette there, which is awesome. And that was on Bayview Avenue, 1543 Bayview Avenue in Toronto. And that was run by a man named J.D. Singh. I should probably look into. I think I heard a few years ago that it's not there anymore, but I should really look into it. But it's kind of neat to have the card. And I have, of course, I have a pipe. I've got a few pipes around, but the pipe's on the shelf. I also have a corncob pipe here in case, I don't think Sherlock Holmes ever smoked a corncob pipe, but who knows. And I have an old brass magnifying glass, of course, a little dusty. And I have a business card for the Sherlock Holmes Museum, but at the front it looks like a business card for Sherlock Holmes. 221B Baker Street, London, NW1. Sherlock Holmes, consulting detective with a silhouette and a signature. So that's kind of cool. My son got that for me when he went to London quite a few years ago. And on the back, it has the address and the information for the museum. Hopefully that's in focus there. But okay, now let's get to the books. I'm going to start on the left-hand side. and work my way over to the right. Now these first two aren't really Sherlock Holmes books, but they're kind of tangential. This one is The Sherlockian by Graham Moore. Now, I read this years ago, and I can't for the life of me remember the premise of it. I don't retain things too well, but I remember enjoying it very much. And I'll probably have to reread this one. But that's just a very cool cover, and it is a good book, like I said, from what I remember, with a very cool cover on there. And this is, I think this is a first edition. Yeah, first edition, 2010. So that's, that's nice to have. And I have, this is one of my, like, I really enjoyed this book, and I know somebody read it. I think it was one of my co-hosts from Holmes is Where the Heart Is. They didn't get on with this book too well, but this is The List of Seven by Mark Frost, a novel by Mark Frost, and this features Arthur Conan Doyle as the main character, as a younger man, before he'd created Sherlock Holmes, but he meets a character in the book called Jack Sparks, and there's supernatural events in here. It's actually more of a horror book than a mystery, and this just happens to be signed by Mark Frost, and it's got a map inside the end papers. It's a very good book. I enjoyed it immensely, and I highly recommend it, but as I say, it might not be for everybody. Let's see here. Now, one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes pastiche writers that I've just recently discovered is Lindsay Fay. And she wrote Dust and Shadow, which I have somewhere on my shelf, but she also wrote some Sherlock Holmes short stories, The Whole Art of Detection, Lost Mysteries of Sherlock Holmes. Now, I really, really like her writing, and I like her Sherlock Holmes stories that she does, and yeah, that's just a nice book to have, and I recommend her. This one's kind of an interesting little thing. It's a Sherlock Holmes cookbook. Doesn't have a dust jacket, though, unfortunately, but this is from, I think, the early 80s, 70s, from 1976, and it is just what you think it would have. It has, let's see, let me get to the table of contents. My fingers are dry. There's the little piece of art. It's just a cool thing to have. Okay, the Sherlock Holmes Cookbook, or Mrs. Hudson's Stoveside Companion, formed upon principles of economy and adapted to the use of private families by two gentlemen, and which contains in one volume, I guess it's a reprint of these two books, Holmes Cooking by John Farrell, and Baker Street Meals and Menus by Sean M. Wright. And the engravings are by F. Dwight Shundo. So there's actually two books in here, and it is just what you think it would be. It has all kinds of recipes from the Victorian era, I'm assuming, and the kind of things that Sherlock Holmes and Watson would eat, that Mrs. Hudson would serve up to them. There's a Christmas pudding, mince pie, gooseberry pudding. This is maybe some kind of a holiday dinner menu, roast pheasant. So that's just kind of a neat thing to have. How to brew a good pot of tea. And we all need to know that. So that's just a neat book to have. Now this next one is very interesting. I bought this years and years ago. When you read the stories, you might read about Sherlock Holmes telling Watson to take the Bradshaw's Guide off the shelf behind him, and they refer to the train schedule when they have to travel somewhere. And I ordered this online years ago. It was expensive then, but I wanted a copy, and this is Bradshaw's April 1910 Railway Guide. Now, in the books, Sherlock Holmes has committed the Bradshaw's Guide to memory. Now, when you look inside here, like look at the kind of stuff he had to commit to memory. Like the British railway system is just a very complex system. Like there was privately owned railways, and they each had their own train and their own railway system, and it was just a very, very convoluted thing. And there's some old ads in the back too. So yeah, like I still trying to figure out how to work this damn guide. I mean, you know, there's obviously, you have to find the area that you're in. Like this one is Dover to London. So if you're going from Dover to London, that's the schedule that you would have to refer to. It's way over my head. It's a very thick volume, and again, every page you see is just like that. It's like that kind of thing. But you know, I had to have it on my shelf, and you know, I'm as I always say, I'm happy to have it. Now that there's a big map in the back, I should probably maybe cut here, and I'll show you the map unfolded. Okay, here is the map. It's a pretty big map. There's a butter knife to show you the size of the map, give you some context. This is the Northeastern Railway and its connections, and you can see right here, there's London, and all those lines are railway lines. What a convoluted mess that system is. I guess it still is, but look at that. That's it. And there's the tube railways. And this is from 1910, which Holmes was still around then in his later stories, in the case book, in his last bow. And this is the London Underground Railways. And knowing Holmes, he just memorized the ones he felt he would need to know, and the rest he just didn't bother with. And there's the other side of the map. Express dining and sleeping car service, connecting England and Scotland. So there you have it. So that was interesting, and that's just a cool thing to have, and I had to have it. And you know, it's just a facsimile. It's not the actual guide. It's a facsimile, and this one was printed, I think, in the 70s. It's a 1968, and it's a facsimile of the April 1910 Bradshaw's Railway Guide. Very cool. Now the next book I have, hardcover. Laurent D'Estelman has quite a history writing Sherlock Holmes stories. He wrote Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula. I think that was the title of it. And I think he wrote a book also where he met Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So this is just a book of short stories called The Perils of Sherlock Holmes. And these were authorized and licensed by the estate of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And Laurent D'Estelman, just a great writer, one of my favorites, and he enjoys Sherlock Holmes, and he's got quite a history with him. So that's that one. These next two, these are young Sherlock Holmes, the boy Sherlock Holmes, The Eye of the Crow by Shane Peacock. And this one's a nice hardcover. I saw one the other day at the store. I probably should have grabbed it because I think it was in better condition than this one. But here, let me show this to you. That's the fold out. There's a map inside. There's the artwork there. And they're kind of very cool stories. Now, there's been a few of them now where different writers have dealt with a young Sherlock Holmes, but these ones are very enjoyable. I do believe he's a Canadian writer, if I remember correctly. So that's Eye of the Crow. I think that's the first one. And then I have his second case, Death in the Air. This is a soft cover. And that's by Shane Peacock. And I do believe it's been so long since I've read them, but those are very cool books. I did enjoy them. So yeah, and they're beautiful books to have. I'll see here. There's another one talking about a young Sherlock Holmes by a different author. And this is supposedly written by Irene Adler. So yeah, there's the back. And it's a YA novel, obviously. This is a self-published one that I found at a thrift store by Gerard Kelly, written and illustrated by him. I'm pretty sure he published it himself. It's worth having on the shelf, but they're not the greatest stories. I haven't read them all as of yet, but I'll probably have to finish reading through that one of these days. And this next one, The Sherlock Holmes Companion by Michael and Molly Hardwick. And this is just a nice little hardcover to have. This is just everything about Sherlock Holmes. And it's dedicated to the living memory of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It talks about the who's who, the plots of the stories, a sampler of quotations, Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson, and then finally it talks about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself. And that's just a great book to have on my shelf. Now this one is just a puzzle book, Sherlock Holmes puzzle book, little hardcover, and just little illustrations from the books, and just has little puzzles. So had to grab that one to put on the shelf. And here we go. There's the Lauren D. Estelman book, Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula. Now, I haven't read this one yet. This is called Holy Clues, The Gospel According to Sherlock Holmes. And, that's probably interesting. I had to get it for the shelf, but as I said, I haven't read that one yet. This one here I did read, and I love this book. And if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, this is highly recommended. Sherlock Holmes Was Wrong. This basically reopens the case of the Hound of the Baskervilles and totally dismantles it and gives a different antagonist. And it's fascinating, just a fascinating book. So well done, and as I said, highly recommended. And here we have just another guide to Sherlock Holmes and His World by Nigel Cawthorne. Sherlock Holmes, A Complete Guide to the World's Most Famous Detective. Little paperback. And we have The Final Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. These are stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle that are, they're not stated as being Sherlock Holmes stories, but like there's some essays in here, some articles, and then there's some stories in here. The Field Bazaar, the story of the man with the watches, the story of the Lost Special, that might be lost Sherlock Holmes stories by Arthur Conan Doyle, but they're not part of the canon because they're not stated that they're Sherlock Holmes stories. But there's Jeremy Brent on the cover, and I have this in hardcover as well. Just a nice book to have. And here I have Chess Mysteries of Sherlock Holmes. That kind of speaks for itself. And these next three, when the TV series Sherlock came out, they reissued some of the books, so I grabbed some of them. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, His Last Bow, and The Return of Sherlock Holmes. I mean, I was a fan of that show for a while, up until The Abominable Bride, and I loved The Abominable Bride, and I said to myself, why couldn't they have done the whole series like this? And then after I watched that, I just couldn't watch any more Sherlock, because that was already the best they could have done at that point. It was a very good movie. We saw that at the theater, actually. Sherlock Holmes and Mr. Hyde. That's not Lauren D'Esteman, that's Christian Claver. And we have some short stories. A Detective's Life, Sherlock Holmes. These are pastiche stories by James Lovegrove, Philip Purser Hallard, David Stewart Davies. Good book. Now we have Study in Crimson by Robert J. Harris. This is a pastiche novel. Very good, very well written. Good writer, Robert J. Harris. And I think there's a hardcover out now called The Devil's Blaze, I do believe, which I have to pick up. And that's a sequel to this one, or the next book in this series. Now we have Gaslight Grimoire. Now these are fantastic tales of Sherlock Holmes. These are supernatural pastiche stories about Sherlock Holmes. And I've had this one for a long time, and there's some good stories in here. Yeah, worth picking up if you want some good pastiches. Now this is a great illustrated classic, like the children's books, and this is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Just a neat book to have on the shelf, with illustrations like that inside. And I do believe they're abridged for kids, the stories. But nevertheless, cool book to have. Now, I've shown these before, so I won't go too far into these. These are Homes for the Holidays and More Homes for the Holidays. And these are short stories, obviously dealing with Christmas. And I love these. These are a couple of my favorite books. Now we have The Bedside, Bathtub, and Armchair Companion to Sherlock Holmes. With that neat drawing there. And this just talks about all the stories and talks about there's some essays about the things that occur in the stories. There's some good artwork. Talk about the words that appear in the stories. There's Jeremy Brett, pre-Sherlock Holmes. It's just a very cool book to have. They talk about the role of a lifetime. There's Basil Rathbone. There's William Gillette as Sherlock Holmes. Years ago, we saw a play here in Hamilton that was based off of William Gillette's Sherlock Holmes play, and they did a brilliant job here in Hamilton at Theatre Aquarius. There's a Sherlock Holmes mystery map of London. So that's that. That's a good book. And here we have Sherlock Holmes and the Baker Street Irregulars. I haven't read this one yet, so I can't really comment on it, but it's a nice hardcover. And there's the Baker Street Irregulars on the back. Ozzy, Wiggins, Rohan, Elliot, Alfie, and Pilar. But, yeah, I'm going to have to read that one of these days, maybe very soon. And last but not least, another puzzle book, Sherlock Holmes Puzzle Collection. And I think the one I showed you earlier, I think is included in this volume, if I remember correctly. 150 enigmas for you to solve, inspired by the world's greatest detective. And it says it's written by Dr. John Watson. He got around. So, yeah, that's my one shelf that's below my paperbacks. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 more shelves, so I won't get to it right now, but I'm going to have to do a part 2 and maybe a part 3. And you guys let me know if you're interested to see the rest of them, and let me know in the comments, and I'll do another one before the month is through. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying all your reading. I hope you're reading a lot of Sherlock Holmes stuff and other things. I mean, don't get too caught up just reading Sherlock Holmes, because you can get tired of it pretty quickly. And I found that the last couple of years that, you can have a little too much of Sherlock Holmes. But, read what you want to read what you feel like reading, and I hope you're enjoying it, and I will talk to you soon. You guys take care. Keep reading.